He's in. Then, a tip about another American in Japan. He's a shoot fighter, which is a kind of hybrid of lots of styles. The fighter's name is Ken Shamrock.
I said, stop right there. I said, I'm loving that name. I said, give me some information on him. I did some research, and I'm looking at a guy who's 6 feet tall, good looking with a strong jaw, in a red Speedo. Unbelievable. I'm loving this guy.
I mean, I was the best in the world. When this thing, the UFC, it was almost like, well, who can beat me?
Next, Art and Horion get a call about Zane Frazier. Zane's a karate champ, and also he's been a bodyguard for people like Stevie Wonder. Recently, he's been working as a bouncer at a notorious LA nightclub, just a really rough place.
And so we would always have fights and knife fights and gun fights and street fights.
So Art decides to meet this guy at a karate show. And when he arrives, it's chaos. According to Zane, he got into a fight with famous American ninja Frank Dukes.
And I really took it to Frank Dukes and, really beat the snot out of him. LAPD came and put us both in the handcuffs. And then Art Davey came up to me and said, "Are you Zane Frazier?" When I was in handcuffs. And I said, "Yeah."
Accounts from the time say it was security guards, not police. But Zane is in. They recruit a local fighter in Denver named Pat Smith. And finally, they get a boxer, Art Jimerson, a ranked cruiserweight.
It's like unfair, I'm going to kill these guys,
So, to recap, we have a Dutch tough guy, an overweight kickboxer, another kickboxer from Denver, a rogue sumo wrestler, a guy who looks like Captain America, Stevie Wonder's bodyguard, and a ranked cruiserweight boxer. That's 7. Only 1 left. Who was going to fight for the Gracies? Horion was helping to organize, so it couldn't be him. Art assumed it would be Hickson, the family champion. He's undefeated.
Hickson was another planet. He was a jaguar. He looked like a cross between Antonio Banderas and Marlon Brando and Mike Tyson. He walked into a room, everybody would stop talking.
But Horion did not choose Hickson. Instead, he went with one of his smallest brothers, Hoyce.
I said, Hoyce? I don't think he has a driver's license. He lives in a room above the garage at your house. His roommates are 2 piranha in a 6-sided fish tank.
My piranhas were very fun during feeding time.
That's Hoyce, by the way. Hoyce loved going to the beach every Saturday, flirting with the girls. He just didn't fit the profile of a serious fighter.
Life is good in my world.
Art had a lot of reservations.
I said, he's 27 going on 17. He said, yeah, and? I said, why are we doing Hoyce?
Putting Hoyce in there, dressed in white like a little angel, it's almost like people feel sorry for him. If I'm trying to prove a point that jiu-jitsu is for anyone, if jiu-jitsu, the little guy can do wonders with jiu-jitsu, Hoyce is the right example.
And Hoyce, yeah, he seems like a slacker, but nobody's ever taken him seriously.
I had to prove to my family that I was a fighter. Because I want to do it, but there's always there's so many brothers and cousins, everybody's always so good. That's what I've been trying to prove to my family, that I can do it, that I can fight.
"30 for 30 podcasts are brought to you by Audible. With the convenient Audible app, you can listen to the world's largest selection of audiobooks and audio entertainment on any device, mobile, Alexa-enabled, Bluetooth, and more. Start listening with a 30-day Audible trial. Choose 1 audiobook plus 2 Audible originals absolutely free. Visit audible.com/30for30 or text 30 for 30 to 500-500. That's audible.com/30FOR30 or text the number 30FOR30 to 500-500.
At IBM, problems inspire us to push the world forward. That's why so many people work with us on everything from city traffic to ocean plastic. Smart loves problems. IBM, let's put smart to work. Visit IBM.com/smart to learn more.
The week of the tournament, we're in Denver. Everybody's arriving. Art, Horion, the TV guys, the fighters, and nobody knows what's going to happen. They need to get 2 things in place. 1, they need to set up the ring, or cage, or whatever it is they're fighting in. And 2, they need to bring all the fighters together. a group of random tough guys from around the world, to explain to them how it's all going to go down. Okay, the first thing. There had been a lot of debate about what the ring or the cage or whatever it is should look like.
It can't be a boxing ring, a traditional boxing ring. I've been in enough fights and I've seen enough fights. If the guy starts getting beat up, it's very easy for him to slip between the ropes and get out.
They needed something different, something that said, this is not a traditional martial arts thing. Some really bad ideas were thrown out.
One was a giant circular mat with a copper ring at the outermost portion, which would be electrified.
Horion was talking about a moat. A moat? What do you do with a fucking moat? And I kept saying, well, we don't have to put alligators in. Ha, 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 ha. Brazilian humor.
Nothing was clicking. Eventually, they settled on an idea borrowed from an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Actually, one of Horion's students had directed it, Conan the Barbarian.
Conan had fought in a stone octagon in those movies. And I thought the octagon was a very cool shape. Like some shapes are not cool. A hexagon is not cool.
Jason Cousin was the man who created the octagon. He realized a stone octagon, that wasn't going to work for TV. So he tried plexiglass and some other materials.
And one day I was just walking down the street and ran my finger along a fence, and I had thought about chain link fence, but of course they didn't want the guys to rip their skin off. And I came across this vinyl-coated chain link fence, and I said, well, this with some padding, and, we put that on the octagon, and we've pretty much got something that'll contain them.
So Jason and his team don't have much time to put together the octagon. The day before the fight, they're in the arena setting everything up, all chain link and padding and metal.
And when you look at the octagon in UFC 1, it's literally like gaffing taped and zip tied together in the padding.
But Art says, no. Actually, it's perfect.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Now, the second thing. It's time for the fighters to see each other in person. This has never happened before, so they need to have a meeting to go over the rules. But UFC supposedly has no rules, so it promises to be a pretty short meeting. Still, there's tension in the air. It's 8 fighters in a tiny hotel conference room, together for the first time. Here's Kathy Kidd. She worked on logistics for UFC 1.
It was like a classroom style set up with a whole bunch of overgrown kids, adults squeezed into these little chairs that were mostly too small for most of them. They were kind of close together after we've been keeping them apart for so long. Now they're all crammed in this one little room, all next to each other. So something was bound to happen.
Horion and Art and Campbell are sitting up at the front. And Horion stands up. He's the commissioner of the first UFC.
Then Horion Gracie says, okay, we're going to talk about the rules. And I says, and I raised my hand. I says, I got a T-shirt that you gave me that says there are no rules. So why are we talking about rules?
I said, you can go ahead and do anything you want. Headbutts, elbow hits, anything you want to do, you can do. The only 2 restrictions we had, no biting and no eye gouging.
Everybody agrees on those. Oh, and one more thing. Fighters cannot tape their knuckles.
It had to be bare knuckle fight. You could put a tape on your wrist, but you couldn't tape the knuckles.
Because that made the hand more of an armored weapon.
What is going on here? Because you're changing rules, flip-flopping back and forth.
I thought this was no holds barred. I thought this anything goes.
My knuckles have to be wrapped so I won't break my knuckles, right? And that's when Horion said, no, you can't wrap your hand knuckles. I said, what?
I'm sitting there for 1.5 hours and they talk. What you have to talk if there are no rules? No rules are no rules.
They kept talking, and then Horion brings up another rule. If you're planning to kick someone, you cannot wear shoes.
Well, because you don't want people kicking with shoes. There was an element in there. If you have shoes on, then it's an advantage. You can kick someone with shoes. That was the idea.
Can we wear the shoes? No, if you're going to kick, you can't wear the shoes. But you said if this is like a real fight, you can't go home and get your hands taped. In a real fight, you might be wearing shoes. Yes, I did say that.
They took away my shoes because they knew that if they could take away my balance, that Hoyce would have a better chance of beating me.
At one point, Rickson Gracie stands up. And when Rickson stands up, he's the kind of guy, when he stands up, people are saying, is there going to be a fight?
And it says, if you want to set us up to fight and to lose, hey, why don't the UFC can start right here, right now? I'll take your punk-ass brother on right now.
These guys are there to fight, and if we have to fight before that, we'll just do it. I mean, come on, I have a little fight background myself.
I've lost control of this, and I'm trying to figure a way. What dramatic thing could I do at this point? Do I start yelling? Do I feign an attack? Maybe I could stop this meeting right here. I could grab my chest and dramatically fall to the ground. Suddenly, that would stop the meeting.
This whole time, one fighter has been weirdly quiet. It's the sumo wrestler, Taylor Tooley.
I didn't really say too much. I just observed everybody. I just signed the paper, and we left it on the table, and we started walking out. Mr. Gracie, he said, he yelled at me, he said, "Hey, Tooley, where you going?" And I said, "I'm out of here." And then he said, "Well, what about the contract? What about the signature?" And I said, "It's on the table. You sign it?" I said, "Yeah." And then the whole room went quiet. And I just turned to all the other fighters and I said, "Hey, man, I came here to party. If any of you came here to party, I'll see you in the arena tomorrow." And then I just walked out.
After that, everybody got quiet. And then they signed the papers. Art, Horion, and Campbell, they all agree Taylor Tooley saved the UFC. It's the next day, November 12th, 1993. All of the fighters are backstage. Art Jimerson, the boxer, is punching a heavy bag. Ken Shamrock is limbering up. Gerard Gordeau is smoking a cigarette and making terrifying eye contact. And one fighter looks surprisingly confident. The smallest guy in the tournament, Royce Gracie. He's totally unflappable. And despite his size, he's telling people, I'm going to win this thing tonight. Things are normal backstage, but the TV team, they're becoming worried. They've tested the octagon, just not for the sumo wrestler. So if he hits the side of the cage, nobody's totally sure if it's going to hold up. And the on-air team, they aren't ready. At the last minute, a kickboxer named Bill Superfoot Wallace was chosen to do play-by-play. And he was a bit dishonest about his credentials. Here's Mark Lucas. He directed the show.
My only question was, "Bill, have you done TV? Tons of TV. Are you okay with an IFB?" And I should have known right then by the pause, probably not. He said, "IFB? Yeah. I said, "Okay."
An IFB is an earpiece that lets a producer talk directly to someone while they're on the air.
So I noticed, too, just before we got on the air, every time he hears me in the IFB, he stops everything he's doing. In fact, once his eyes kind of drift up to the ceiling, and I go, "Bill? Yeah, Mark." I go, "Why are you looking at the ceiling?" He goes, "No, I'm just, listening to you." I go, "You can't listen while not looking at the camera." Got it. So, show starts. All right, Bill, 5, 4, 3, boom.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are about to see something that you have never seen before. The Ultimate Fighting Challenge.
Championship, Bill.
Hello, I'm Bill Wallace, and welcome to McNichols Arena.
He burps and goes, "Excuse me," and keeps talking. And that was the beginning of the show.
Probably the worst sports broadcast in history. And I think it's awful to be the second worst or the third worst. If you're going to be bad, you need to stink.
So the TV broadcast is live on air, and it's a giant mess. But it's finally happening. The tournament is real. Single elimination, bracket style. The first fight is between the sumo, Taylor Tooley, and the Dutch guy, Gerard Gordeau. Or, as Bill Superfoot Wallace calls them,
the first match will be Gerard Gordeau against Taylor Tooley.
Well, we were behind the curtains, and then the rock music started. And then the smoke machine started. And it just blew us away. We was like, "Oh no." And I just seen the whole crowd. There was a different spirit. They was jacked up.
16 pounds, the 1992 world champion French Savate boxer, holder of the European French Savate boxing champion title for 3 years in a row, Gerard Gordeau.
I think Gerard Gordeau's real job, I think he was an assassin. Because he was about the scariest person I'd ever met in my life. He was just so intense.
Gordeau comes out, and he does something more than just intense.
Got into the octagon and did this kind of Hail Hitler salute to the audience. It was very weird.
He saluted